Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 100 Days of DevOps. And we are currently in phase 5 of our journey. And this phase 5 involved looking at infrastructure as code. And we've been on this for the past 6 days. We've looked at Terraform, we've looked at what Terraform is, we've looked at why we need infrastructure as code, then the role Terraform plays. And we've been doing quite a few things with Terraform in the past, I think about 2 or 3 days. So we started from having a single main.tf file where we defined our resource and then we used it to provision resource on our Azure portal. Then I talked about how a single file doesn't really it's not really recommended, but you have to break that. We broke that single file into different files where we have the main.tf, the output.tf, the provider.tf, the variables.tf, and the likes, where it looks more production, standard, right? So today we are also going to develop on that. Yes, we're going to develop on that, and I'm going to be introducing us to a concept. Um, and I hope that by the end of this video, you would have gained one or two things. So now, like I said, we defined everything, we broke everything into different folder, right? However, the main.tf folder is still like the main folder that um, Terraform will actually use to provision its resources. So in this main.tf, different we have different resources that have been provisioned. Majorly, we are provisioning a virtual machine, but virtual machine will not be provisioned like just by itself. There are other things that come with the virtual machine, such as the virtual network, the network interface card, the OS disk, and and the like. So different resources were provisioned. So now let's imagine that you can provision different resources with one main.tf file, right? So after this, you can go down and then you can also write the Terraform block of code to provision a storage account. You can write a block of code to provision an AKS cluster. So let me paint a picture for you now. Let's assume that this is our single Terraform file, and we've provisioned so many things. We provisioned a virtual machine, provisioned the storage account, we provisioned in an SQL, MySQL database, we've provisioned probably VNet peering, we've provisioned AKS cluster. We also have like a web app. So we have like 6 to 7 resources that is provisioned in this single main.tf file. Now let's assume now that maybe you want to make a change. So let's say you want to make a change to the storage account. Say you want to change the redundancy type from maybe ZRS to GRS, as the case may be. Basically, you want to make a change to one of the resource in that main.tf file. Now, the moment you make that change, the entire block of code that's from the everything written in that main.tf file will be like Terraform will go through everything, and that might take a lot of time. It's just like having a monolithic application where you define everything, in one place, but now you have to break it down to microservices, which makes things a little bit loosely coupled, right? So it's the same thing here. So once you make a change to one part of the code, the entire block of code it might not necessarily be affected, but then it will run through everything, and that might take a lot of time. And in some situations, you might end up affecting another resource or another service that you've defined in that block of code in your main.tf. So in order to do this, the Archicop came up with a concept called modularization. So basically, you have modules, right? And what are modules? Modules are just, they're just like in programming, you can call them functions, right? You have like a module where you can just plug in. You have a module for virtual machine, you have a module for storage account, you have a module for, let's say, AKS cluster, you have a module for web app. So in your main.tf file, you don't write all of these things that we've written here. it's not going to be in your main.tf file. You have a separate main.tf file that just points to that module, right? So um, I'm going to show us everything so that um, it doesn't look like I'm saying jargons. So what I'm going to do now is that how do you create a module? But okay, before we proceed, in the first, or when we started writing our Terraform code with our VS Code, we installed a plugin called Terraform. So we're also going to install another plugin. It's just to help us write our syntax much more better. So you go to a section, search for HCL. That's the HashiCorp language. So you click on this HashiCorp HCL. When you click on HashiCorp HCL, you install it. So it also helps in formatting your block of code better, and it helps to actually write your Terraform files better. So that is already installed. So now we have both Terraform and HashiCorp, because like I said, HashiCorp is the company that owns Terraform, right? So that's done. So I'm going to go here and I'll create a file. I'll create a file called modules modules, right? So in that modules file, I'll create another file. So now I want to create a module for Azure VM. Let's just name the file Azure VM. So this module is based specifically for Azure VM. So I'm going to now move all of this main.tf, all the things that I've defined here. I'm going to move everything to our our Azure VM module. So I'll move the main.tf to the Azure VM move. I'm also going to move the output.tf to Azure VM. So I'm also going to move the provider.tf. I'll move basically everything apart from the terraform.tfvars. And I'll explain why I'm not going to move that. And lastly, I'll move the variables.tf. Okay. So now that we have a module, we've created a module called Azure Azure VM. So this module helps us to create a virtual machine, right? This module helps us to create a virtual machine. So now what do we do now? So we've let me take out all of this. Okay. So I put everything in Azure VM module, but I left out terraform.tfvars. Why? Because terraform.tfvars contains sensitive information. And in a case where you're working with, like I always say, as a DevOps engineer, you will not be the only DevOps engineer working with a particular team. You might have 2 to 3 to 4 DevOps engineers working with a particular team. And then you want to push this module to maybe a central repository, maybe like GitHub. When you're pushing to GitHub, you don't want to push sensitive information to the remote repository, because anybody can actually get a hold of it. So each engineer will have their own, terraform.tfvars. So basically, in your git ignore, you're going to put terraform.tfvars in your git ignore, so you don't expose this to the general public. So when I click ls, so I already have a module, and that's basically all. So in this, let's say this is the main folder. We have like the main Terraform folder. In Terraform folder, we now have a subfolder called modules, and in the modules folder, we have a subfolder called Azure VM. So how then do we reference this? So now I'm going to now create a main.tf, another main.tf in the Terraform folders. The root folder is Terraform folder. So I'll create this. No, I don't want to create it in Azure VM. Into touch touch main.tf. Okay. So now we have two main.tf. The first main.tf, which is in our Azure RAM module, and then the main.tf, which is what will be our main file, which we are going to use to reference all of those modules. So now, how do you use a main.tf. So it's simple. Basically, it is simple. So when you want to write a main.tf, all you need to do is just come and write module. So you're calling a module. So once you click on module, what name do you want to give the module? You can say v vm VM creation. Then what do you define in a module? What you put in a module is source. So you need to include the source. And the value of that source is where can that module be found? Where can that module be found? It is the source that you use in referencing where you can find the module. So the module can be found in dot forward slash. You can see it's already suggesting. That's why all of these plugins are actually very, very useful. So the source is in modules slash Azure VM. So I'm just going to click on tab, and that is basically all. So if you have, let's say for example, you don't have the TFVRS file where you have all of your values for your variables, you can as well include all those variables. You just write all of them here, and then it will pass it into your module. But since we already have the Terraform TFVRS, I don't need to include anything. So it is as simple as that. So imagine us now. We've turned this entire let's say this is the main.c, this is the other main.c. See how much block of code we have, and then we have like 1, 2, 3, 4 files, and all of that we just reference it with just 3 lines of code. So we use basically 3 lines of code to call an entire module. So you can see now that you're writing less code, but you're still able to achieve that same thing, right? So let's see how this works in practice. So I'm going to go back here. I'll go back to the provider.tf. I'm just going to copy this. I'll still copy this, and I'll just put it in front, just right before my module. So basically, you have um, we've done that, and I'll save it. Now I'm going to do Terraform init, Terraform init. So decentralizing the backend again to confirm all the changes, and be sure that there are no issues with what we have. So you can see now we have this. It is giving us this output VM creation in modules slash Terraform. So it recognizes that there's already a module, and there's already an Azure, sorry, module slash Azure VM. So there's already is a module called Azure VM in the structure. So our init, so we'll just do Terraform plan, Terraform plan. So now this is actually very, very recommended in the sense that once anybody wants to create anything now, they don't have to write the entire block of code. The whole goal of this is you're doing less and you're still achieving same thing, or you're doing it's basically tech. One of the main ways, or one of the things that DevOps has come to actually do is ensure that some manual things, since you will do manually, are reduced to the barest minimum. So imagine having to always write that block of code when you want to create this so much block of code when you want to create an Azure virtual machine. I mean, it's stressful, right? But if there's already a module, all you need to do is just reference that module in your main.tf file, and then everything works fine. So we're going to give this a minute for Terraform plan to work. And then after that, we'll do Terraform apply, and we'll see that we have written the same thing. Now we'll be writing the same thing. I think this should be like the third way we are writing the same thing. The first was a single main.tf file where we used it to create a storage account and a virtual machine with just one single main.tf file. We defined everything there. And then the second is we now broke that main.tf file into different files, creating a file structure for Terraform, where we have provider.tf, output.tf, variables.tf, tfvrs, Terraform tfvrs, and we have our main file. And then now we want to use a module to do this. So it's throwing an error. So let's see what this error is showing. Value for undeclared variable. The root module does not declare a variable named SSH public path, but the value was found in terraform.tfvars. If you meant if you meant to use this value, add a variable block in the configuration to silence this one. So these are basically just warnings, and they are warnings because the main values, like the values, are not in the module. Like I said, we can't put like the value in that module for security reasons or for safety reasons. So it's just a warning. It's not really a big deal. So you can see here, 5 to add, 0 to change, 0 to destroy, just like the other one. So I'm going to do Terraform apply auto auto approve. So we're going to apply this. So these are just basically warnings. It's just saying Terraform is saying we didn't find the values for those variables in the module, but we found it somewhere else, which is in the terraform.tf VRS. So they're asking, do you actually want to use it? Is it that one you actually want to use? If it is not what you want to use, it is better you just define the value in this module block. And I said it that you can define all of those values in the module block, or you can leave it in terraform.tfvrs. So it's just a warning. Terraform is just telling you, okay, we found something, but we don't know if it is actually what you want to use or it is not what you want to use. So basically, that is just what Terraform is trying to do. So if you get this, and you can even see it right in front. It's a warning, not an error. So it's a warning. You can choose to either ignore or you can choose to define your variables, in also this block, of course. So while I'm waiting for that to get done, because once this is done, we'll confirm from our Azure portal, and then that will be the end of this particular video. We'll move on to another thing. So while I'm waiting for this to actually get created, you might be wondering, okay, what if, like, okay, how do I put it now? You might be wondering, okay, are there already made modules that you can actually use? And the answer is yes. So in addition to apart from when we're doing our containerization, we had Docker registry. So Terraform also has their Terraform registry where you can get um modules from, and then you can use it. So I'm going to show you. So this is almost done. So I'm going to come here. You just search for Terraform registry. So when you start for Terraform registry, you click on it. So some persons have taken the pain to write their own modules and then upload it to Terraform registry in case you want to use it. So you can go to Terraform registry and then you can search for a module. If you find it, then you can use it. Though okay, let me. So there's browse provider, there's browse modules, there's browse policy, and all of that. So we are peculiar about browse modules. So we are working with Azure. So you check the Azure box, and you can say we're looking for Azure virtual machine. Let's check the second page. So there are so many resources that a module has been created for. So you don't have to go through the pains of creating that module. So you can see Azure AKS. You can see, okay, Azure Resource Complete Virtual Machine. So you can click on it. When you click on it, you can so looking here, provision in structure. So it said copy and paste into your Terraform configuration. So you can see how to use it. Okay, let me use this submodule. Let me use the click on examples, and let's choose Linux default. There are different submodules that you can actually use. Let me just use Linux default. Okay, and if you come here, you will see this is how you can use it. Let me copy it. So you just copy it, you come to your VS Code, and you come here, and you paste. So this is how you can use a module that's already on Terraform. right? The module that they've already created before, so you can use it. However, I don't know. I've not used a module from Terraform registry before. Most times, I prefer to, write my own modules and then reference them because you might not really have so much control. Except if you take your time to go through what has been defined in the modules and then you're sure it is what you actually need, then you can use it. But for the purpose of this video, I'm not going to use any module that is from Terraform registry. I'm just going to use the module that we've actually previously or originally defined. So our resource has been created, 5 added, 0 change, 0 1. So we still have that warning. It is the same thing because Terraform plan will give you the same output that Terraform apply will give you, right? So if we come to our portal and I click on resource group, so we can see our resource group was created. And when we go into it, we'll see our virtual machine. We'll see our virtual machine. So now let's take this. Let me not stop at creating just a virtual machine. We are going to create another module. So we are going to create more than one module, and then we'll see how we can use the same main.tf file to write, you know, 2 modules. So we have under modules, we have the Azure virtual machine module. So let's create another module for let's create a resource which storage account. Okay, we've been working with virtual machine and storage account basically. So let's set it to modules and then let's create a module called AZ AZ storage AZ storage. So this module will be used to create a storage account. So let me save this. So modules, we have Azure VM and then we have Azure Storage. So in the Azure Storage, I'm just going to use a main.tf file to just create a simple storage account. I just want to reference it. So just do main.tf. So we have the main.tf file for the Azure Storage now. Okay, so I'm just going to copy, we created a storage account here. So I'm just going to copy this. So I'll do come and paste it here. I think I need to remove something. I need to remove the remote backend, because this was the file we used to create the remote backend. So we are not working with remote backend for now. We're just like we're working with a plain storage account. Okay, so it's as simple. We have the resource group. Let me see. Okay, so now this storage account creates a new resource group. I think it's even better. This storage account creates a new resource group and then creates a storage account in that resource group. And the resource group that this storage account is creating is different from the resource group that the virtual machine is creating. So let me see. I think um let's see. I just want to be sure that everything is okay. Okay, we have the name of the resource group, we have the resource group name, we have the location, we have the application type, and we have GRS, we have the okay. So this is fine. So what we'll do now is we have 2 modules. I'll go to the main.tf file. So if I want to create a storage account also with, so in fact, without even typing anything, it's already suggesting the second module that I've created. So all I need to do is just hit tab and then the module is created. So I can do that, or I can remove the VM creation, or I can include it with the storage account. So let me just do, we are creating 2 resources now, a VM and a storage account. So let me do Terraform. Okay, I'm in modules. I need to go back. I think the system is misbehaving. Do Terraform init. So it will initialize the backend again, and then so it will see that module. Also, that's the storage account module we created. So now it has added the the AZ storage account, and it's reusing the previous module and all of that. So let's do Terraform plan, and then we'll wait for the outcome of this, and then we'll do Terraform apply. So from the Terraform apply, we're still getting that same warning. Just that's because um it is still the VM part is still there. So we're still getting that same warning. But if we look here, we'll see 2 to add, 0 to change, 0 to destroy. That's because we are creating a storage account, but we also define in our storage account module that we are going to create a separate resource group. So it's creating a resource group and it's creating a storage account. So I'm just going to do Terraform apply. So wait for the outcome and wait for our resources to be created, and then we can confirm where on the portal. Okay, so our resources have been created successfully. So apply complete, 2 added, 0 change, 0 destroy. So I'm going to go to the portal now and we'll confirm that we have. So now we have a new resource group called test RG, and when we go into it, we'll see the storage account that was created. So this is how you can use modules. Basically, with modules, you don't have to write so many blocks of code. You just have like, you can just reuse a block of code that you've used, create a module for a particular resource, and then reference it when you want to write your main.tf file. I hope you've actually gained one or two things from today's video. When you try your hands on things, you'll be able to understand better and you'll get better at writing these files and then working with all of these tools. So if you've liked my video so far, please do well to share it with your friends, share it with anybody who is interested, share it with your colleagues or your family and anyone who wants to do tech. And do not forget to subscribe to my channel if you're yet to do that. And most importantly, please turn on the notification bell so that whenever I post new videos, you will receive them the moment I do that. So I'll see you again on the next one. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.